Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about DAX aggregated functions. There are mainly totally five types of the DAX aggregated function. One is the count function, sum and average and max and minimum. These are the five functions. Out of these five functions, in our other video, we already talked about the count family. There are the totally eight different count functions are there, which will support on the different scenario. All those functions are covered under the data analytics with DAX count family. That is the video, you can refer it. So that will cover entire count family functions. Now the remaining functions that we are going to talk in this video are SUMX, average, average A, average X, and MAXX and MIN, and their extensions MAXA, MAXX, and MINX. Okay, let's get into the each function in detail. First we'll go through the sum function. Sum function is basically do addition of all column values from any table that we given. The return value that using the sum function, the return value that we get it in decimal value. And some functions are like more simple function to aggregate. I mean, basically, we have two types of sum function in the DAX world. One is the sum and SUMX. Out of that, sum function is simple function to aggregate the data, whereas the SUMX function will sum up the values by for the given column based on the additional filters. I mean, these filter we apply before we sum it up the any measure value. And let's go into the some examples. So here is my SUMX. First one is a sum function where I simply wrote just a normal fact table, which is the internet sales. And then after that, I just use the sum function where I'm trying to sum it up my total sales amount and tax amount from my internet sales fact table. And now this is how I wrote the statement, sum of my internet sales amount and my tax amount. So to get these values, multiple aggregated values in the single resist window, we need to use the flower bracket in the starting and in the end. So that's how the syntax that works in we along with the evaluate function. So now you can see here I got the sum of the values for those two columns. Now whatever we get those sum of the values, if we want to take it like a table format, then we can do that by using the value function. So in my other video we already talked about how the value function works in the tags. You can go to the description and we'll go to that particular video. So that video will help you to understand how the value function works. Now coming to our scenario, we use the value function and fetch the sum of the internet sales amount and tax amount, then we name it actually for those two measure values. And here it will show in the results will be shown in the table format, right? So where your columns will be value 1 and value 2. Under that, the first row that we are showing our sum of sales amount, and we given that value name as sales amount aggregated. And for the second column, which is the sum of tax amount, and then we given that tax amount column name as value name as tax amount aggregated. So this is how you can simply write your sum function and fetch the data using the evaluate. Next one, you can also use the sum function along with your define measure statement, which is nothing but you can define your calculated members first and then bring those calculated members to your results by using the summarize function. So this is the way what I'm trying to get here using the summarize function. First I want to display my calculated sales amount, and then second query what I did, I just extended to few more columns. In this query what I'm doing, so I'm taking the sum of my aggregated value for the currency code, and now the data is the aggregation is splitted for the currency code level. Okay, and then you can order by that currency code by using this query. Just use the order by and sorted the currency code. And then you can also write your sum function in your variables, calculated variables in the tags. So this is how we write the variable. So first define and variable, and given the variable name and sum of my internet sales amount, and I call that variable along with my internet sales. So here I use the select columns, and then along with my customer ID, I just populated my variable value in this query. Now you can see here it's executed. It's a duplicated for all the customer IDs because we are first summing up entire value and assign to that value to the variable and calling that variable to our result set. That's the reason you will see the repeated values here. But if you do same thing with the measure, so in the top query, when you take the sum along with your measure based on your group by, your currency, your sales amount gets splitted along based on your group by column. But variable, it stores the data and display the data along with results. That's the reason we see the duplicate values. Now moving on, so SUMX function. SUMX function is same like sum function, but the difference is we can do the additional filter of the data, then sum up our uh, sales values, I mean numeric values. So in here, the example, you can see here the first query. What I did here, I want to sum it up my internet sales and tax amount, but while I'm summing up, I want to take only the customer ID 14870. For that customer ID, I want to take my sales amount, but for other tax amount, we didn't apply any filter. Even we can apply any filter at the tax amount level, and we can fetch the data. And the second query, I just little extended. So here, I'm trying to get the sum of my sales amount where my customer gender is male, and that will also work because using this related function, it works like a join between the customer dimension and internet sales. Since those are already joined, enable the relationship in the tabular queue, you just need to mention the related function. The related function will route the reference between the internet fact table and the customer table. Based on that, it will fetch the records. Now so here we added, in this query we added only one dimension, but now I extended adding the other dimension including the geography. So now here what happening in the third query, the sales amount we are trying to fetch where my gender equals to male, and then my country region name is France. And let's see, and if I execute this, and then I get the my sales amount for the France, and gender is male. Along with that, tax amount also we get it, but the tax amount we didn't apply any filter. That's the reason it's getting the grand total at the internet sales. Now here, I use the again value function. So just to show my aggregated results in the table format. This time I given my first measure sales amount that I filter out at France and gender equals to male. I given like a France male sales amount, and the for second query I given the tax amount aggregation. So basically the tax amount we didn't apply any filter, so just I given the same name for the row value. And similarly, the SUMX works with along with the measure, and then you can filter out the data at measure level and then take that value and display along with your summarize function along with other columns, and based on the group by, it will split your data. Here we added the currency ID, that's the reason it splitted the data. And then here I just use the order by currency code, so just to sort the data. So and it's sorted out. And then last one again, we can use the SUMX function in our variable also, where you can apply your filter and fetch the sales amount and assign that sales amount to our variable, and then displaying that variable value along with our customer ID by using the select column function. Now again, it's a duplicating here because as I mentioned previously, so the variable is actually before we call into select columns, it's aggregating the data and storing the data that to variable and displaying the that value in the select. That's the reason it's a duplicated. So that's about sum and SUMX function, but there are keynotes for the SUMX function as per the behavior. So it will take only the numbers into account to sum up the value. The rest of the values like a text and logical values and blank values will be excluded while it's doing the sum of the value, I mean while it's summing up the values in that column. That is the keynote that you need to remember. That's about the sum and SUMX function. We'll move on and talk about the average, average A, and average X function. Average function is already you are aware of it, how the average is getting calculated. It will take some of the numeric values from the given column divided by count of rows. Based on that, we'll get the average value. So here we have the three types of the average functions. One is the average and average A and average X. So average function is a simple average function that will take the values from the column and calculate the average. Average X is actually where you can write your expression to filter the data, then calculate the average value. Average A is actually a special function. What it does, it more works on the Boolean data type column values. Wherever you have the true and false, right? Those scenarios, the average A function will help you to calculate the average value. So let's get into some examples how we calculate the average. And here, if I go to this tab, and here are my some example DAX queries that I wrote uh, to explain. So the first one is we are using the average function, where here we simply query the our fact internet sale. From the fact internet sales, what I did, I just trying to take the average sales amount and my average tax amount. Now you can see here, these are my average values for the both sales amount as well as the tax amount. Now I want to take those two values of the results in the table format. For that, I used the value function and then capture those average values as a table. So the value one, it will give us like a name of that particular row, and the value two is actually fetches the average value of my given measure. And then I can also use this average function along with the defined measure, which is nothing but our calculated measure in the DAX, and calling that calculated measure in our summarize function. So this is how it will work. Here I just summarize my measure and without having any group by, and just giving the name of that newly created average sales amount. Now in this query, what I did, I just did the group by at currency code level, and then fetching the average value for the each currency ID. And in here, I'm just sorting the data based on the currency ID and displaying the averages. Now the same thing, the average value you can calculate and store into your variable, and then call that variable into your results. And this is how it will display. So in this query, I'm trying to display my average values for the each customer ID. But since I'm predefinedly calculating my average sales amount and storing into my variable, because of that, it's a duplicated. Now moving on, average x function. Average works x function works like average, but in addition to that, here we do some additional filter criteria. So first we filter out the data. So in this query, you can see I want to take the average of my sales amount, but before we taking the average, I want to take only the where the customer ID is 14870. Now it will calculate the average for that particular customer ID, and you can see here 2148. And similarly, the second query, I'm trying to use the related dimension table with internet sales fact table, and where my gender equal to male, and for all the males I want to fetch the my average sales amount and average tax amount for entire internet sales, but the sales amount I want to fetch only for the male, gender equals to male. Similarly, male equals gender equals to male, and region name is equal to France. For that filter criteria, I want to fetch my average sales amount. This is how you can write. And similarly, you can write you can bring your average values into table format by using this value function, and also you can use your average x function in measure, and also you can use it like a variable and display the calculate your average value and get displayed. So that's how the average x will work. It's a more like how the SUMX works, right? Same way the average x will work. And then moving on to the average a function. So average a function, as I mentioned in the initially, average a function will work a little differently. So it averages the column contains the other than numeric values. So some columns you might have the numeric values and boolean type values, right? True or false, or text values, or blank values, or null values. In that given column, you can have all these type of the values. In such scenario, what happen? Average a function is very handy to take care of and calculate the average value. So what it will do, other than numeric values, if at all you have a boolean type values, true or false, it convert the true equals to 1 and false equals to 0. And similarly for text value, it convert to 0. When it convert to 0, that record will be considered as a one part of count of record. And blank and null values also, it will convert as a 0. Then it will take these data type values into part of your average calculation. In case if you don't want to use those boolean type text and blank values part of your average calculation, you can directly use the normal average function to calculate. And then here, so this is the one example you can see um, where my product is finished product or not. So it's a true or false column. Now if I execute this with average, it will throw the error stating that the function average cannot work with values of type boolean. So this column is actually having the boolean type values. Now I change that function from average to average a. Now it will work. So it's calculated the percentage of the true value, average percentage of the true values in that particular column. So out of 100, 65% of the values are true values, and 35% of the values are false values. That's how we need to read the results. That's about average and average a and average function. Now let's move on to the max and max a and max x function. And the same way we talk about min and min a, min x. I mean, basically both are it's almost 99% same, but only the difference is max function will give the max results from your given column, and min function will give the minimum value from the given column. Let's combine together and cover in in this topic. Okay, let's get into details. Here are some examples related to the max and min. So what are the functions that I mean the DAX queries that I used in average and sum? The same DAX queries I used for max and min to fetch the data. So now let's get into the max first, and then we go to the minimum function. So in the max, again, we'll have the three types of the max function: max and maxx and maxa. And max is the again max and maxx. There is no major difference. So only the difference is you can apply the filters, more filters than the maxx function. But maxa is actually again it take care of your boolean type column values. So wherever you have the true boolean type value, and it will take it as a 1, and false, it will take it as a 0. Even the max function works for the text column. It will use some numbering in the backend and fetch the max value from the given text column. You can see here. That's how the max here works. And let's come by in step by step in order format. So the first function, what I did here, I just hard coded the values, two values. Out of the two values I want to fetch, which is the my max value. So basically, the max function will take the two input values, the expression one and expression two. Okay, and then so this is how it will. I mean, out of these two values, it will bring the uh, max value, which is the 4. And then next one is the again you can write your max function on your sales amount or tax amount, any measure, how we did for sum and average. Same way you can write the max function. This time it will fetch the data for both sales amount and tax amount. And again you can bring those max function values in the table format. Even you can change this to min, it will work. So now this time you're taking the max and min value in the same table. Okay, so now let me change back to max. And similarly, you can use this max function in your even measure, calculated measure, and call them in your result set along with summarize function. You can call them, and also you can fetch you can map those values even into the variable. So this is how you can map to the variable and display the values along with other results along with the select columns function. Similarly, you can write expression within the max function. Here you can see where my customer gender equals to m. Out of that, what is my max sales amount, which is the 286. That is my max value. And similarly, for the tax amount, it fetches the normal max value. And same way you can store the MAXX. What are the results that we get in the MAXX? You can store it in the grid format, and also you can write the MAXX function even in the calculated measure and then sort the data. So this is how it will fetch it. And then also here you can map those values and to the variable and display the value. And this is how the maxx function works. And even maxa, we talked about it. So maxa is actually just another extra function to take care of the boolean and boolean type values. Now you can see here, if I use the boolean type column along with my maxa function, it's converted values, the boolean values, true to 1 and false to 0. So the max value always will be the 1. Okay, that's how the maxa and maxx function works. The same way, wherever you use the max, the min function exactly quite opposite to the max. So it will the min function will bring the minimum value from the given column. So for example, I'll go to the here, some examples here I wrote, and here you can see here. So I'm trying to fetch my minimum sales amounts and tax amount. So I got the minimum sales amount and tax amount, and then even you can use in SUMX minimum x function. And here also, along with the measure, it will fetch the data, and then it will bring the min value and then display for the currency code. And then also you can use the min function for your text column, where it will convert your values, and based on that you will bring the text value. And then you can also use on the boolean type column here. The boolean type column, when it's translated true to 1 and false to 0, the 0 will be your minimum value. So this is how the min and max will work, both functions. And that's about all the aggregated functions in the DAX world. I'll post these, whatever the examples, the DAX example that I wrote here, I will post in my either comment section or description section. You can use them directly, copy paste them to your SSMS, and you can start using those functions to modify according to your scenario. So whatever the function, I mean, examples that I wrote here, it's purely on the tabular cube. It works on the tabular cube. But if you want to translate these queries to work in the Power BI, probably you need to remove the evaluate, and instead of the evaluate, you need to write your column name, and then there is a slight, writing this code in the Power BI is a little different. There is a small syntaxes that you need to follow to reuse this DAX query in the Power BI. That's about aggregated functions, and then I see you in the next video. Until that, thank you. Bye.